All set, check. Alrighty. My name's Shawn. Good morning. I'm one of your safety guys here at ICM. Today's class, we're going to be covering Electrical Safety 101, basic electrical rules, common sense. This one's gonna be a lot more pictures, kind of type involved. Just kind of showing you some of the things that we see out there when we're out doing our safety visits. But totally going back and forth. If you guys have any questions at any point, anytime, by all means, let me know. A couple different features we have is you have a little chat feature. You can chat in a question. Another thing you can do is if you're on the phone line or if you have guest speaking availability, by all means, just raise your hand, let me know you got a question. I'll call on you and we'll get her taken care of. Hopefully you can hear me okay. If there's ever any questions, by all means, let me know and I'll try and play with some buttons and all that good stuff. But today's class, I don't think it can be too terribly long. I'm working on another basic electrical safety, so I'm going to be a little more in-depth, kind of breaking it down, leaving a little bit more code-wise without getting too crazy. But this one is just a lot more common sense, what we see, what you'll probably see at your facility, what you may see at your facility, things along those lines. So Electrical Safety 101, definitely inspect electrical equipment to make sure that there are no recognized hazards likely to cause an employee's death or serious physical harm. Definitely one of those things to make sure that you're staying on the up and up and everything's working well at your guys' facility. We see this quite a bit. Outlets. Well, outlets in a multitude of different areas. Number one is making sure you have a proper outlet and all your outlets are going to be covered. Like this one up here, it's going to, whoa, my line didn't work. That one's looking good. It's not claiming to be a GFI or a ground fault interceptor or anything like that. What we tend to see quite a bit is all the time is just essentially unguarded, damaged outlet covers. And believe it or not, the state will actually look out for those, and you will get potentially cited for those. When we start seeing outlets that are kind of damaged, kind of like up in here, and if you start seeing black, brown, things along those lines, guess what? That's kind of like, Mr. Rogers. It is not looking good in your neighborhood there. So if you have any of those kind of damages, you don't want employees getting injured. You don't want your building catching fire, you name it. But you just definitely want to make sure that you're going to be set and good to go. Once again, like I said, and the big thing when you don't have your electrical outlets properly covered is all brain cramp. All electrical cords or exposed wiring. There we go. Exposed wiring finally came to my head. All exposed wiring below 8 feet must be guarded. So that's you want to make sure you have a proper electrical cord and electrical outlet cover. Now, in your lunchrooms, in your kitchens, in your bathrooms, one of the biggies here is you want to make sure all outlets within 3 feet of a sink are going to be properly GFI protected. Like I said, ground fault interrupter, interceptor, all that kind of good stuff. Essentially push to test. So heaven forbid, you get some water to transfer over into the outlet. That electricity may come to you for like the briefest of seconds, which I'm sure, is not going to feel so hot. But guess what? It's going to trip. And that's what you kind of see over here on this bottom right picture. Like I said, you'll see it in probably your house and all that kind of good stuff. But it's just a push a test, reset. So that way, the current is not continually going, throughout yourself, and you're not you're not exposing yourself or your fellow employees kind of any potential hazards. Circuit panels, oh my goodness. Circuit panels can probably go on for days at some businesses. Biggies with circuit panels. First and foremost is the doors need to be shut when they're not in use. So all these covers here, they need to be shut when they're not in use. You always want to make sure you have a 3-foot clearance in front of circuit panels at all times. They need to, and essentially, and the biggie for that, why you have that clearance, obviously you want to have a clearance into an aisleway leading to a circuit panel, but then you also want to be able to access it. Heaven forbid something's going on, Joe's out in the back and he's kind of getting like a little fried or something like that, and you want to go to the source to where you can de-energize it. If you can't get to it, it's obstructed. I mean, seconds could cost someone's potentially life. So that's why it's huge, it's crucial. Always making sure you have that 3-foot clearance in front of your circuit panels. And then that way they're going to be accessible at all times. You don't want doors obstructed. Making sure you're going to be covered here. And same thing here. The other thing with circuit panels is you want to make sure that they're all properly labeled, identified. You need to know what goes to what. Whether it's, front office lights, back office lights, garage, whatever it is that you guys have at your facility, you want to make sure that it's properly labeled, properly identified, as far as what goes to what. Because all that's going to essentially come back to a lockout tagout program, which I might as well go ahead and segue to that. Essentially, all businesses need to have a lockout tagout program. If you have circuit panels, all that kind of good stuff, if you have hardwired equipment, essentially what a lockout tagout program is identifying what it is, how to potentially de-energize it, and then who's allowed to work on it. So things along those lines. You guys can log on to, excuse me, you can log on to Illinois, or not Illinois, well, Illinois probably has one too, but on to ICM's website, and we have a lockout tagout program. We have a tutorial on how to implement it, and make sure that you're going to be covered. So just definitely want to make sure you're going to be covered, especially with the lockout tagout. Also with circuit panels is, these ones are circuit breakers identified here. Once they're unguarded, remember what, like I said, all, circuits, exposed wiring below 8 feet, you want to make sure you guard it. If you go to the store, Home Depot, Lowe's, you name it, they'll sell like, plastic little safety blanks, and you just insert in there. So that way an employee, in theory, you want to protect your employees at all times, so they're not going to go in there and, stick their fingers in there or stick a screwdriver in there or anything along those lines. Believe it or not, we've seen it. So beware. Don't be that person or that guy that wants to try certain things. Like I said, talking about circuit, the lockout tagout program. If you see something that's, it's de-energized, it's shut off, tag says do not turn on, which, okay, maybe that's some good communication. But guess what? If someone's working, let's say they're working on something, and I'm not a certified electrician, but someone out in the shop or you name it, out of that room working on some piece of equipment. Essentially, if I didn't know that they were working on it and I was going to go use it, and I go, oh, well, wait a minute, why is it shut off? And I go and I turn it on, and someone's working on it, that's not going to be good, because then they're going to have the current coming through, and they're probably not going to be expecting the current. I can tell you there's this one facility, perfect example of lockout tagout. I guess we call him a maintenance guy. Big guy. Let me tell you, when I say big, he's a big Harley driving, mother. But he's their maintenance guy, and he's noticed that the lights weren't on, in the parking lot. So he goes up to the circuit panel, he switches it on. About 15 minutes later, some other big guy, electrician, comes in, and he goes, who the, blah blah blah, turned on the circuits. I almost died out there, and this, that, and the other, and the maintenance guy, he kind of let him have his 2 seconds of spieling out his what was going on, but he knew about lockout tagout. And so the guy, he told him, he says, well, you're an electrician, right? He goes, yeah. Okay, well, I went and turned it on because the lights were off. It wasn't locked and tagged out. You understand you're supposed to do that, right, for like your own safety? He goes, he didn't know that he was working on site, working with electricity, and things along that nature. So yeah, even though he maybe got scared, maybe he got zapped a little bit, sometimes it's a friendly little reminder. Even the pros, especially the pros, they can make mistakes, especially when it comes to lockout tagout. So that's the whole reason behind that, to make sure that you're going to be covered. Especially, definitely watch out in any kind of wet type areas. If you have any kind of circuits, you name it, that could be exposed, especially circuit panels that can be exposed to the elements, you want to make sure that they're properly covered. Obviously, water and electricity, it just doesn't mix. So make sure that you're going to be set there. Here's the biggie where I'm talking about wet area operations. So beware, like in a lot of businesses, in detail areas, car wash areas, just even outside, where you have some random plugins. You want to make sure that that they're all properly guarded and they're exposed to the elements. Like this one here, once you shut the door, that's an example of a good one. But then it would be covered. This one here, well, we're missing doors, things like that. We have items plugged into it. It's Washington. It rains. It snows. All that kind of good stuff. So once again, the dampness and is not going to mix with electricity. Beware, there's a couple different guards out there. You'll see a lot of kind of like metal type, outlet covers. Once you open it up and you plug something in, if it's outside, honestly, you're not protecting them. So the big thing there is when you have outlet covers, that's a proper one. and then what would happen is the cord would just come out the bottom, but it's closed. You know, you're protecting the elements. So definitely taking a look at you guys. You know, now these are notorious. I'm not gonna lie, they're notorious for breaking. You know, they get used, especially if they get used quite often. You know, as we can see here, it did have a proper guard at one time, but now it doesn't. So I'm making sure that you're gonna be set and covered at your facility. Electrical cords. These are so much fun, especially for L&I inspectors. Okay, so electrical cords. With all electrical cords, you want to make sure that you inspect them prior to use. If you're seeing any kind of damage, if you're seeing any kind of exposed, like some of these here, you know, obviously we've got the exposed. Get your line up there. Got the exposed wiring here. Exposed wiring is notorious on vacuums. Heavily used items, you know, they're not going to last over time, you know, unless you have some heavy duty industrial ones, which even those, you know, you're going to have exposed wiring, you know, off and on. If you have any kind of damage, replace them, get rid of them. Or if you guys have a certified electrician, you know, to fix it, go right ahead. Do not use do not use electrical tape. Black tape is like a moth to flames. With L&I inspectors, they'll unwind it, and then if there's any kind of exposed wiring, you're going to have a citation. So essentially the only way that you can correct any kind of exposed wiring, making sure that you're going to be covered, number one, have a certified electrician replace it. And also I would even go with the certified electrician to use heat shrink. So what that does is essentially it just seals, you know, across any kind of exposed wiring. But making sure that, you know, you're going to be covered there. The other biggies with electrical cords is you don't want to run a surge protector into or out of another surge protector, nor do you want to run an extension cord into or out of a surge protector. You see this happen quite a bit in office environments or just areas where maybe, you know, back in the day, you know, they only had XYZ for, you know, electrical outlets, but your business has grown and now more people are doing more stuff in a certain area. Beware there. You know, what you're looking at doing is you're going to overload the circuits, and you know, surge protector is not going to work properly if you're running it into or out of another surge protector. Same thing goes along with extension cords. Electrical cords. Here's the biggie here. They cannot be served in lieu of permanent wiring. When you start trying to make them permanent wiring, electrical cords can't go through a door, a window, a wall, or a ceiling to serve in lieu of permanent wiring. If you're doing that, you're going to need to call an electrician, you know, to make sure that they hardwire or add some, you know, electrical outlets for you, because yeah, that's definitely one of the no-nos there. We've seen some pretty good citations on that. So, you know, making sure that, you know, you're going to be good there. Believe it or not, this stuff actually happens. Common sense says if you have a 3-pronged outlet, you can't plug it into a 2. Well, I guess common sense didn't work on this one because this person actually made it happen. Don't do that. If it's a 3-prong, you know, outlet, you know, make sure you plug it into a 3-prong female outlet. Not trying to get too creative there. If you have any kind of multi-plugs, electrical cords, outlets, you name it, have a couple of these pictured here. You got the yellow one, it's considered a multi-plug, and then you've got the brown ones. Essentially, all of these need to have an overcurrent protection. So essentially trip. So in case if it gets overloaded, the circuits get overloaded, it's going to shut off. And then it's not going to turn into this bendagle mess over here that essentially is going to turn into a fire. You don't want fire at your place. You know, so making sure that, you know, you're not overloading any kind of circuit. So your brown cords, your green cords, your white cords that are multi-plugs, you can only use those during Christmas time, technically, legally. But I would still recommend using the proper ones where you're not creating a fire hazard at your facility. And then, you know, some other else common sense stuff is I wouldn't, you know, put the mouse trap or any kind of a trap or any kind of hazard near a plug-in. You know, if your employee's going to be sticking a hand up somewhere, that's going to hurt. So you don't want to create any hazards for your employees. More on exposed wiring. So in general, I mean, we already talked about the outlet covers and things along that nature, but if you guys have any exposed wiring below 8 feet, it needs to be guarded. If there's a cover missing, if there's an outlet cover missing, you name it. You also don't want to be sticking any kind of like, you know, flammables and, you know, sticking rubber gloves in there because, you know, they can catch fire. Just a little bit of a, you know, a short. So making sure you're going to be set there. And look out for those things. Let your employees know, where it is that you guys are going to have things. Lights. Lights are a part of basic electrical rules and the biggies here. And let me try and make sure that I cover or dot all my I's and cross my T's and all that kind of good stuff. But here's a given. All lights below 8 feet must be guarded or have explosion-proof bulbs. So even in like an office type environment, if you have any kind of overhang or anything like that, guess what? You got to guard those lights. In lunchrooms, bathrooms are notorious just for having like the little bulbs in there. Essentially, those need to be guarded. So it's just a given, standard. All lights below 8 feet must be guarded. It used to be any lights above 8 feet. If there was anything stored within 18 inches, then those lights needed to also be guarded. Now, we've actually seen some citations based off of that. Just going off the L&I inspector's interpretation, even though it's not necessarily by code, I'll give them the common sense aspect of it. So let's say you have a light that's above 8 feet. Doesn't need to be guarded, and you don't have storage within 18 inches. Okay, but you do have some storage, maybe within a couple feet. Who knows? It depends on what it is you're storing. But if you can visualize, however it is that your employees are going to be retrieving something, if they could potentially strike that light, by all means guard it. So that way you're clear, your employees are safe, and you're not going to get a potential citation. So factor safety over any kind of hazard. So biggies here, like I said, all lights below 8 feet must be guarded, have explosion-proof bulbs. Here's an example of a good one. So you have the fluorescent lights. Those are actually plastic sleeves, and they have the end caps. Now, if you have the fluorescent lights and you're going to guard them like that, you need to make sure, like I said, you do it like that. A lot of times we'll see, just the plastic sheaths in there without the end caps, but you want to make sure that you have those end caps that will contain any potential explosion, of the lights. The other biggie here is spent bulbs. You guys are going to go through, you're going to change them out. So strongly recommend that you place them in a box like in which that they came in, so that way then you properly dispose of them. But essentially, these guys are going to fall under the same code too. So you don't want to set yourself up for failure. And here's where I'm giving you examples of lights above 8 feet, but you have items stored around these. So if you could potentially retrieve those items and hit those lights, guess what? Guard them. The other biggies that we tend to see is exit lights. Double check at your facility. Make sure that all of your exit lights are going to be that they're working properly. That you have the proper light lumage, and make sure that like I said, that they can see them. And those are the biggies on the lights, so to speak. Watch out in shop areas. Even though I say all lights below 8 feet, watch out for your drop lights, things like that. Sometimes they can get overlooked because we've seen some pretty serious injuries. One of these here is always remember, well, number one, I'm not a certified electrician, not even going to try to be one, and quite honestly, electricity, it can scare me at times, especially when I'm walking through some of these facilities. But electricity is considered the quiet killer. So if you're going to be exposed to any kind of potential hazards, by all means, report it to your managers, supervisors, owners, whatever it is that's your guys' chain of protocol, to where you can get corrected. You don't want to have someone just have an accident that could have been easily corrected. And when we're talking about easy corrections, these are things that the state goes through, and they see these and they cite these, and so making sure that you're going to be covered. But these are just some convincers in case people just really wanted to, or they need some convincing, to make sure that electrical outlets are approved and used. So you had an over-junction box located in the shop area, office behind it. They didn't have a cover on the junction box. No cover knockout plate to the junction box. Broken outlet faceplate. So not a lot of those things here, but guess what? That's $1,800. So some of these electrical citations, they can potentially be up there, and make sure you're going to be good to go. Ooh, that one's a bad copy. I apologize. So we've got exposed wiring. This is just some different examples of exposed wiring that they have. Jumper battery cables, see that happen all the time. Pop machine, that's a stretch. But thermal lamps, battery chargers, those are infamous for having exposed wiring. So just had a couple $100 on each of these here. This one here, this is a biggie. The employer did not ensure electrical equipment used or located in wet or damp locations is designed for such use, and that the electrical connection for the large vacuum in the car wash was not made using waterproof electrical connectors. Use of blah, 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 blah. Essentially, if you're going to have electrical cords, outlets, you name it, especially in any kind of wet area operations, make sure that they're going to be approved. They're going to be, UL approved. They're going to say, okay to use outside. Honestly, they're going to have the grounds. The biggie there is make sure you're not yanking them out of the wall, and then next thing you know, you're missing the ground, because if you don't have that ground, that's not going to help stop it. Also, you need to make sure that the outlets are going to be properly approved. So where if heaven forbid, if something happens, water gets in there, water, electricity, not going to combo work, especially with the human body. No bueno. So making sure that, you're protecting your employees as much as you can. This one, okay, I'm not going to lie. This one was funny because it was just such a joke. But this one here, the employer did not ensure that fluorescent light fixtures were guarded to prevent hazards associated with exposed electrical wires. The fluorescent light fixture was attached to the ceiling and was measured at 7 feet 8 inches from the ground in the storage room and the sales associates lunchroom. Unguarded fluorescent lights fixtures bulbs could possibly break and expose employees to injuries from electrocution or shards of broken glass. Severe injuries from shards of glass could result in cuts, scrapes, eye injuries, and permanent loss of vision. Okay, here's why I personally thought this one was funny for the facility. So number one, in the storage room, there was no storage above 4 feet. In the lunchroom, the lights were directly above the seating area. So my prime example for this, for helping to fight this citation for the business, was that okay, they have no employees over 6'4". So if we have no employees exposed to it, especially in the lunchroom, someone's not going to be 7 foot. The fact that they missed it by 4 inches, it's like, okay, that was an L&I inspector that really had a bad day. Remember what we say: always give L&I inspectors milk and cookies. Let them do what they're going to do. But if they find this stuff on you, that means someone probably upset them, and someone did upset them, and so they were kind of throwing the book at them. That particular employer did not have a good day. They actually got a lot of dollars in citations. But those are little things that make sure to the T, make sure that your house is in order, dress right, you're good to go. But we have tons of this information on ICM's website. Especially the lockout, tagout programs, trainings, you name it, making sure that you're going to be covered, and that your employees know what's going on. But that is what we have today. Does anyone have any questions on anything I covered? Sweet. Fabulous. You guys rock. Have a great and safe day, and then take care.